signed between the Allies and the Germans was where we flew into from Wismar. I mean, came into on a bus. Change that. We left Wismar at the end of about 2 days on a bus, about 30 of us on a bus, and headed westward. But I'm going to have to look up, I'm going to have to do a little more research to realize where that next place, it was just a place to go to catch an airplane to get to France.
What country are you?
In Germany.
You're still in Germany?
Yeah.
I'm going to pause this a minute.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
We'll just skip along here. I don't remember the name of the town that they took, that the bus from Wismar took us to, but it was a place where there was an Allied air base where we could be flown out of to get us to the coast of France, where they had set up huge ex-POW refugee camps. And we flew out of this unnamed city across western Germany to the coast of France.
And this was a collecting point that they had?
This was a collecting point where, and in that book it'll tell you more about it, there were thousands of American and Canadian airmen.
And how long were you at this collecting point in France?
Approximately 10 days at Camp Lucky Strike. And we were near Le Havre. I remember that.
Could you estimate about how many ex-POWs were there during the time that you were there?
Probably 50,000. I believe there were 3 camps. There was Camp Lucky Strike, and they had them all named after cigarettes that were popular at the time.
50,000.
Yeah. Now these were ex-POWs.
Correct.
They weren't all airmen.
Correct. And these 50,000 were going to get across the English Channel, I guess, or was that the next stop to get over to England, or
no,
did they leave from there?
We left from France to New York City. We were at Rouen. We were flown into a dirt strip of landing field at Rouen.
And you left Rouen on a transport ship?
We left it on a, what did they call those? They were little commercial supply ships that ferried materials and ammunition and everything to England from the United States.
Not a military vessel?
It was not a military vessel. It was it was not a military-owned vessel, as I understood it, but it was operated by
commission. Been taken into commission by the military. How long did it take you to travel back to New York?
2 weeks.
Wow. Excruciatingly slow, I guess.
Yeah, excruciatingly slow. And
I know what I forgot to ask you. Going back even to the time that you were in the prisoner of war camp, did you receive any mail? Did you have any kind of contact from your family or friends or acquaintances back in the United States?
As best I remember, I got the first mail from my folks, from anybody in the United States, and it was from my folks, about 3 months after we got to the camp. Now, my message to my mother and dad was transmitted by wireless to some place like Greenland or
Mm-hmm.
Iceland, and then it was transmitted on to the States. And this was all sort of amateur business. Anyway, my exact message, though, came through, and I have copies of it, and up in the closet there.
These are Western Union telegraph messages?
that type of thing.
Okay.
The telegraph message came to my folks in the form of a Western Union type thing, but it had been radioed across the Atlantic.
And how did their response get back to you?
By mail, by
Back
snail mail.
through the Red Cross or some?
Well, no, actually it went through the United States. Well, yeah, it had to. Yeah, there had to be probably it went to Switzerland or Sweden.
Switzerland.
Probably
yes.
Switzerland. Yeah, that's where the Red Cross was.
All right.
And we kept up a correspondence going on for the rest of the war, but it was spotty, and usually, and I got one package, a gift package from them that took about 60 or 90 days to get there from the time they mailed it.
Wow.
But they did get through.
Now this whole journey that you're taking, there's no way you could have been in communication with them during this. That I could. Is that correct?
Couldn't have been in contact. What?
There was no way for you to have been in contact with your parents or anybody during all of this.
No.
I would imagine.
No. I believe now during the end of it, when we got to Camp Lucky Strike, they had message centers where we could sit down and write out an email. I believe it was. Maybe they sent telegraphs. I don't remember.
Okay.
But yeah, I got pretty quick word to my mother and dad that I was in France.
All right.
Would be coming home soon.
Well, I interrupted you there. You had left France on this ship, and it took you two weeks to get across the Atlantic.
I think the name of this little, I think they call some of them Liberty ships. The name of it was John S. Pillsbury. I remember that. And later on I heard, 2-3 years or more after that, that it became so out of need, they just didn't need it anymore, and it was in bad shape, and they took it out in the Caribbean and sank it.
Turned it into a reef.
Yeah.
Huh. But you landed in New York?
Landed in New York one morning, one midday, I guess.
And I guess by now we're talking about June or thereabouts. And
yeah, we're talking about June. Yeah.
how long did you? How did you get?
Somewhere around June 15th, I got to New York City.
Had you ever been to New York before?
No, I never had.
Well, tell me about your first stay in New York.
Well,
were you interested in remaining there at all, or were you just focused on getting home?
We landed in New York, and all those decisions were made for us. They took us to Camp Dix in New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
They just put us on trucks, and we went through New York City on the way, and then to Fort Dix. And there it was just a matter of waiting for a train and getting some more clothes and being paid a little more of our back wages so that we could go out on the town for a little bit. We didn't go to New York. So I think we were there in Fort Dix about 3 days, and they put us on a train that went along the Hudson River going west to Chicago.
Okay.
And lucky me, I was the senior officer on a train with 100 airmen and infantrymen and signal corps guys that were German, that were Indians, and they were code talkers.
Yes.
There were one or two old men, and their sons and grandsons were on the train with us, and they told us about these code talkers.
Well, there's been a lot brought out about them in the last couple of years, that at least that I became aware of. But anyway, explain code talkers.
Well, code talkers they spoke an Indian dialect that was at that time, at least, there had never been any translation of from their dialect to English. It was just it was a tribal way of communicating, and only the people in the tribe knew the language. And it was like with many other nationalities that we've assimilated into the American culture. Only the older folks knew the dialect. So these old guys were sent to
the dialect or the language.
The language itself, yeah. And they were used in France, and I also understand that they used them in the Pacific. And they had nobody ever broke the code when they were talking. They'd have one old Indian at one point and another old Indian from probably the same tribe, I guess, at another point, and they talked to each other, and they could translate through younger Indians or something. They translated the messages that they were sending and receiving.
I'll be darned. And there were these people on this
there was
train.
At least one. I think we had two, and we had some of their progeny on board with us, some of the younger Indians. We had 100 of them in all, and we went on a coach train out of New Jersey, and overnight we were supposed to get into Chicago and get onto a Pullman train with sleepers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got in there and there wasn't any train for us to get on. So daylight came on a Sunday morning, and the troops got restless. Here we were in Chicago, and why weren't we doing something about it? You know.
Sure. I was wondering when people were going to start getting restless. I'm hearing about a lot of traveling here.
Yeah, they were getting restless, especially these young Indian guys. And some of them didn't, even some of the younger ones didn't speak much English. So we kept getting word that the Pullman coaches that we were supposed to get on were going to be there in that morning. Then it was going to be noon. Well, before noon came, they got restless enough that I couldn't keep them on the train, and they were getting out and doing things like going into the city, and the mothers of Chicago furnished free transportation for all servicemen. So they were going all over the place. And two of them never did get back. We just had to go off without them, but the rest of them had enough time that they could go out and see the city some and ride the buses and get back before the train pulled out. But we lost several there.
I just would imagine that's all part of the fog of war, basically, or a continuation of it, and that type of thing was happening all over.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody took them in and got them with the authorities where they could continue their trip home. And where we were going was El Paso. I had a choice of going to El Paso or Dallas, and I said, well, I've never been to El Paso. I think I'll just go to El Paso. And it's El Paso is right on the same, I guess it's Southern Pacific at the time. It's on the same railroad that my hometown's on. So
okay,
all I had to do was get a Pullman train out of there and sleep overnight and be in Abilene the next day.
Were you thinking about anything